moving to the action agenda, that would be item number 2.
Resolution number 033-22, consider adopting resolution number 033-22, authorizing the acquisition by condemnation of the right-of-ways and easements necessary for the 199th Street Shoulder Safety and Structural Improvement Project between Clare Road and US 169 Highway.
Mr. Pedig.
Good morning, Brian Pedig with Public Works. So this item is for the approval of condemnation for the road safety project of 199th Street, and that's Clare Road to US 169. And I assume we'll bring the map up here. There it is. So that's the segment in blue right here. This is a joint project with the city of Spring Hill. We will be doing safety improvements, adding shoulders, creating a clear zone, improving drainage, as well as we'll add existing pavement to the we'll add pavement to the existing structure. A little background: 199th was designated by the county through the CARNUP process in 1999 as a major arterial and a parkway. That was from 56 Highway all the way over to Mission Road. About 10 years ago, when the intermodal facility started development, we switched our priorities from east, and that was 199th, east part of the county, to the southwest area and 199th. This improvement, when completed, will give us a link between US 56 Highway and US 169 with safety improvements, except for the 3-mile stretch that was recently annexed by Gardner. Could we switch to the next map, please? Mm-hmm. Currently, we have 7 owners out of 23 that we have not reached an agreement. We will always try to work with these owners through the condemnation process with the hope of reaching an agreement. With that, I'll stop for any questions you have.
Okay. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. So on Chapter 4 of the Transportation Plan of CARNAP, it says CARNAP is not to accommodate interstate truck traffic. It is Johnson County's position that it is a primary function of the state and interstate system to provide adequate access through the county for interstate truck traffic. And this is a huge concern for the residents in that area because the truckers are taking shortcuts through. And when we improve this, then it's just going to be more of an attraction for them to use 199th Street. Now, it's my understanding that the county actually has the ability to prohibit truck traffic on our secondary roads in the county. Is that correct?
The county does have the authority to ban trucks.
Okay, so
Or not ban trucks, but put load limits on whatever routes we think are
right,
appropriate.
and so basically we do not want big semi trucks on our secondary roads because of many reasons, safety issues, number one, but then the impact that they have on our infrastructure as far as wear and tear. And then also we have an email and other communications with the city administrator and Gardner stating that if we go forward with these improvements and if truck traffic begins to increase, that they will ban truck traffic on their portion of 199th Street. Is that correct? Is that?
I don't believe that's quite correct.
I think the written communication has been altered via in-person communications with the individual who sent the letter. So,
Chairman, this is Penny. I did talk to the city manager this week and reference that letter, let him know that this was coming on our agenda review today. And he said that knowing the background and where things are now, that this was for safety reasons and that it was in the queue before BNSF to do this whole corridor, that this has changed the priority based on traffic patterns, et cetera, on which length, that he is okay with it now. So he did have that in the letter, but based on more discussions and understanding, that's what he told me this week.
So I think that we need to have in our plan, I'd have no objections to the safety upgrades, but I am going to add an amendment that the county, that we prohibit the large truck traffic on our section of that road. I know that we have to accommodate truck traffic, I believe, within 1 mile of like 169 or I-35. If I'm incorrect, you can correct me. But we need to do whatever we can to encourage this truck traffic from all of those large warehouse facilities to go to the interstate, because that is where that traffic should be. It should not be on our arterial road system. So and we would just be simply following what we have in policy, that CARNAP is not to accommodate interstate truck traffic, and that is what is happening. So I will be adding that as an amendment.
Well, this item, I think, is important. It's been identified as a public safety issue. The agreement with Spring Hill was reached back in 2019. And so if we do not move forward with these safety improvements, I think it puts into question the county's liability issue for any future occurrence. So I hope that, as in the past, when we've authorized condemnation, that the staff and landowners can get together and work through those issues. But I think it's important that we move forward. Ms. O'Hara? Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have no objections to the safety improvements. I just want to make sure that we have safeguards in place that will discourage interstate truck traffic.
Yeah, the issue of
Which
traffic.
is a huge safety issue.
The issue of traffic, whether truck or otherwise, has always been paramount, whatever kind of development occurs. That's been my experience. And if there are activities taken to prohibit certain traffic, then that traffic is going to find somewhere else to go and create additional issues, wherever it goes. So I think we need to be careful. And I understand there are concerns about traffic, appreciate that, but this is focused on public safety, and that's where our efforts should be. Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to remind the BOCC that your team continues to have ongoing meetings with every city and township within Johnson County, and that it is the utmost goal. Do I not have my speaker on?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. To find direct routes for these trucks to go in agreements with the other cities, and some of that process takes time. And as you remember, if you look back, clear back 11 years ago, when the intermodal went in, 199th Street was one of the main fairways. So now we're going back and try to readjust that, and it all takes time. So if you go and Google in, your team's trying to work with Google Map, you go in, and these truckers, I mean, I totally understand how a resident must feel having a truck. Believe me, that truck does not want to be down a dead-end road and trying to turn around. But when you Google Map where you're supposed to go, it can lead you in different directions. I'm sure it's not happened to any of us on this setting up here, that you've never gone a wrong direction. But I do want to continue to say that that's been going on. If anybody drives down these roads, how dangerous they are. You know, you get, even if you get a farm equipment going down the road, they have nowhere to go. There's no place to go off to. So this is a huge safety issue in this district. So I'm in support of this with no amendment.
Other questions? This is agenda review. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of a process question because the matter before us is about a condemnation plan dealing with 7 property owners, 9 properties. Before next week, we may want to clarify with the parliamentarian in terms of if there are subsidiary or conjoining motions related to other issues. It may be the same street, as it were, but this issue is on whether or not to proceed with condemnation.
Correct.
And to that matter, Mr. Chair, Mr. Pedic, I have a general sensitivity to condemnations. I very much am supportive of individual property rights. There is a line there between taking someone's property and someone taking liberties with that property. So I will look forward to your analysis on that to make sure that if condemnation is worthwhile, that it doesn't infringe upon those individual rights.
Okay. All right, other questions? Ms. Hanslick?
Thank you. As following up on Commissioner Ashcraft's question, thank you, Mr. Pedig, for meeting with me and going over this project and explaining the history and background of it and the safety needs. One of the things you pointed out to me that was helpful was on this map, and I appreciate your clarifying this, that those properties in red that are the subject properties for this action item, the amount of property being needed for this project is not that whole parcel that's in red. Is that correct?
That's correct. The existing right-of-way is typically around 40 feet, and again, that was the original right-of-way that the settlers dedicated to put in a little dirt road for their wagons, and that's what we're operating these roads right now. We need about 20 feet on each side. That's a generalization, but it's typically an additional 20 feet on either side.
Thank you. I think that's important to clarify that. This is not taking this,
The whole
the whole
property, no.
parcel. It's the 20 feet. Thank you.
All right, well, this will remain on action, so,
I was going to say put it on consent.
I was waiting for you to say that.
okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pedig. Next item.
Item number 3, consider authorizing a $1 million investment in Hedge Lane Apartments, a 144-unit low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC affordable housing development to be constructed in Shawnee, Kansas.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, the Planning, Housing, and Community Development Director. I'm also joined at the podium this morning by Jessica Hoteling, our Deputy Director of Housing, as well as David Ward, our Director of Housing. So I'm going to provide a brief introduction to you on this item, and if there are additional questions, especially in regard to financing, Ms. Hoteling will be able to address those for you. She has quite a bit of experience in housing development. So this is essentially a unique opportunity that's come before the county for the county to invest $1 million using community support funds for a affordable housing project in Shawnee, Kansas. Essentially, it's 75th Street and K7, and I believe I'll show the site plan if I can as well. We also have a vicinity map for you next week. But this is somewhat unique in that the developer who's been working on this project has the low-income housing support tax credits in hand, has gone through all of the approval processes with the city of Shawnee, but because of inflationary pressures, labor pressures, and also material pressures, has a $1 million gap for the project. So these discussions came out of, as part of the background of our housing subcommittee report, and that group meeting about different ways to think about housing investment in the county. We have typically provided housing choice vouchers, which are effective, and it certainly provides a very, very valid need, but it doesn't expand the supply of affordable housing. And so with this project, we would be expanding the supply of affordable housing by 144 units. And this is the other caveat, this is workforce housing. And these are for people with incomes less than 60% of the area median family income. So it's workforce housing. It's a chance to create long-term affordable housing units as well. There's a 15-year note associated with the tax credits, and so this would be a non-interest-bearing, non-amortizing loan for this project. At the end of 15 years, there's an $850,000 balloon that could be assumed by a new buyer to extend that affordability period even further. And so that's what's unique about it. it's an opportunity to create and tie up these units for being affordable for a long period of time, much longer than we have done previously. And so it's just a unique opportunity to be able to do that and to have a project that is this fully along and vetted and gone through all of the financial processes as well. So with that, I'll see if I missed anything.
Let me ask a couple of questions, Jay. You know, this is identified as workforce housing, and there are tax credits and subsidies, et cetera. Do you have an idea of what the bottom line rent would be?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to refer that to Jessica.
Hi, good morning. Jessica Hoteling, Housing Services. For a one-bedroom apartment in this development, and the rent limits are set by HUD, they change every year. We get new ones, and these just came out recently. For
Can you speak up just a little bit more?
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. For a one-bedroom, it would be about $1,100. And for a two-bedroom, it would be about $1,300 is what would be considered an affordable rent amount.
Okay.
That's at the 60% limit.
All right, well, thank you for clarifying that report. Second question, we would have, as I understand it, a second mortgage, and that puts us in a secondary position as far as the finances are concerned. Are you aware of what we can do to enhance our position? Or is there any way, are we last on the list, so to speak?
Frankly, we are last on the list, so to speak, yes. Based on, our $1 million is about 3% of this financing package for this project. We'll record a mortgage lien, we'll record a note. One of the things that we can put into that mortgage lien, we can put in some default language. We can work with legal on how to put in default language. A unique piece of this project, because it has low-income housing tax credits, it's not only that with a normal mortgage lien, if someone defaults, you can start foreclosure action against them. Also, with the low-income housing tax credits as part of this project, you can actually go in and go after some of the funding that's associated with those low-income housing tax credits. That is not preferable for the developer, because then it's sort of a stain on their reputation if they don't get it moving forward, and it inhibits their ability to get credits in the future and do further development. We can work with our legal department on that language, for that default language to go in those mortgage liens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, we need to make it as tight as we can.
Agreed,
Question,
absolutely.
Mr. Myers?
Mr. Chairman, if I can add just one additional item, in talking with the developer, he is willing to put up a personal guarantee for those funds as well. There's also personal guarantees associated with the tax credits as well.
That would be helpful, yeah. Mr. Myers?
Thank you, Chair. I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure it's on the record. But Shawnee, the city of Shawnee, has all the necessary requirements for this type of development to take place?
Yes, Commissioner, that is true. The original rezoning application and the original site plan, I believe, was approved in 1999, and then a revised plan was put forward and with this development team, and was approved by the Planning Commission in June of 2021.
Ms. Fast?
Yes, workforce housing, I talked to Mike Brungart yesterday at the SMAC meeting. He's city manager with DeSoto. It's one of he said the housing crisis that we have, that the county is going to need to be the #1 priority. The home builders say we need 9,000 units in the greater Kansas City. Sunflower, that's potential to have 4,000 to 7,000 jobs. I mean, and so the housing needed on that Sunflower, the housing needed next workforce to our Century is going to bring in several thousand jobs. We've got to begin to work on this. Lee Harris, who's on the airport, my appointee, I met with him, and he does this work across the nation, and he said that gap funding is just the critical piece why he can't develop an affordable housing unit in Johnson County, but gets that across the nation from local governments. So I think this really reflects the goals of our housing continuum. I would like us to move forward to have a housing trust fund. So then this is what KCMO does, Topeka does, Lawrence does. So this is a part of the housing trust fund. So I appreciate the innovation, and this is what we've got to start addressing in the future and have this be a priority.
Okay, Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you know, do they have any studios for single, do you know if they have any studios? And then,
Commissioner Allenbrand, Jay Leipzig, the unit mix are all one-bedrooms and two-bedroom units. There are no
okay.
studios.
And so are all the units,
And there are also three bedrooms as well.
okay. And are all the units all tax credit?
I believe so, yes. They are all tax credit units.
And do you know if the city of Shawnee helped with some of the hookup fees and I'm assuming they did, but, you know, because it does need to be a partnership. And some of those fee hookups and some of those connector fees can be a lot. And is it something that Mr. Myers needs to go talk to them about?
Commissioner Allenbrand, I don't know the answer to that question. However, the developer will be here next week as well. I don't believe they've offered any additional incentives in terms of either abatements or reduction in fees for the project.
Okay. Well, maybe you could let me know beforehand. And I thank you for meeting with me ahead of time because I was concerned about the process of building and making sure it's up to speed. And I appreciate, I know that you have experience there.
Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you. So, yes, Commissioner Allenbrand, the cities do have a lot of fees, including an excise tax when this is platted. And I don't know if that was paid back in 1999. I don't know if that is now being paid, but from memory, I know that Overland Parks was around $10,000 an acre and maybe has increased. So I agree that that the city should be wanting, if this is what they're wanting, that they need to be looking at it. But this whole thing, and I'm really glad that Commissioner Fass brought up that she's interested in developing a trust fund. Because before we go down this road, and I think that we should consider delaying any action on this, before we go down this road, we need to acknowledge what our future investment is going to be, because this is going to set a precedence. And then we need to know how much money are we going to be spending each year to be subsidizing these types of projects. We can't just go in and go, okay, well, this sounds like a great idea, and we're going to use federal money, and it's not going to impact us. But no, we're starting an entirely new process, and we are setting a precedent. And the developers will be coming in. This 3% funding is going to be part of what they're going to be using as a down payment for this apartment complex. And so the county is providing this money. What in the future, in 10 years, what is the size of this going to look like? We just need to have some idea before we decide that this is where we're heading.
I would just note this, this project would not move forward without the tax credits from the state, and are there any from the federal government in this instance?
Mr. Chairman, no, there are none for the federal government. These are the state tax credits.
Pardon?
They are state tax credits.
State tax credits, so, yes, that's an issue that sets us apart. Ms. Hanslick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Leipzig and your team for bringing this opportunity to our attention and for working out the details. I think one of the things to me that's critical to keep in mind about this project is that this would help Johnson County to provide more people with options to use their housing choice vouchers. As is noted in the briefing sheet, between January of 2020 and anticipated December 31st, 2022, we're going to be losing 349 housing choice voucher units. And in fact, have had a call yesterday from a woman in tears. She works full-time, but her income does not allow her to pay full market price for an apartment. She provides a very valuable public service here in Johnson County, and her current apartment complex is, the management's turning over, and she was told she has to be out by the end of June because they are no longer accepting Section 8 vouchers, and she has nowhere to go. She cannot find another place that will take her voucher. And she's the kind of person we need here in Johnson County. When we say workforce housing, that's what that means. People who are working but cannot, we want them in our community, but we need to have more affordable types of housing for those folks. And so I think it's just really important to recognize that our investment of $1 million, or our loan of $1 million, could have impact in years to come on our ability to have our workforce here in Johnson County and the valuable people that we have and we need in our community. So thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Protocol question, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hotelling, is this your first time before us?
Yes, it is my first time before
Well,
you.
welcome to
Thank
the
you.
Board of County Commissioners.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Ashcraft. Thank you.
Proposal.
It's such an
Thank
easy
you.
proposal.
Thank
Yes.
you.
But thank you. Glad you're here.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Very good. Before next week, Mr. Lipstick, I have a number of questions, and if we could visit, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Be happy to.
Okay, all right, well, Ms. Allenbrand.
One other comment, and then I'll stop. I do want the BOCC to know that there has been ongoing meetings for over a year now on subcommittees talking about trust funds and housing and homeless. So you have put a lot of work into this, and between the three of you, there's a lot of experience. How many people are on waiting lists for those vouchers?
Just under 700.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Well, again, this is the first time we've viewed an activity such as this, and I think it is appropriate to think about, does this open the door to many other similar situations? I don't know the answer to that, but I guess in my judgment, this would be a first time. I would consider it a pilot, and that this does not mean that the next request will receive the same consideration.
Chairman?
Ms. Fast.
Also, it is really difficult to get housing tax credits, so Johnson County has very few projects. So to say this is opening the door, and now the new state program is focusing on all the rural areas with the moderate housing tax credit. And so that is an ongoing issue for our county. And I've asked staff if you could get the numbers, how many housing tax credit units we're losing. So we're not only losing housing voucher properties, but we're losing market rate, affordable housing units, because all these apartments in Mission, Merriam, Overland Park are coming off the tax roads. So and then we're growing all these jobs. We are moving into a direction that is going to force this commission to make housing a priority. And in terms of the housing trust fund, it was on our continuum, and I didn't hear you bring up anything then. So we had discussed it previously.
Okay. Ms. O'Hara.
Well, I would really ask that we have a committee as a whole discussion on this. I understand that the subcommittee had extensive discussions on this, and that that I didn't bring it up at that time does not mean that we shouldn't be looking at it since we have an application now. And I will tell you, coming from the construction industry, this will set a precedent, and this will bring other projects to the county because this is helping with the down payment. I would be very interested in knowing how much cash this developer is actually putting into this, because this $1 million is going to it is going to narrow the gap as to what his cash investment is in it. This is a business decision for this developer. And I applaud that. That is not an issue. But we as a county commission cannot just go blindly into this. I mean, are we going to be putting this as a budget item of $10 million a year? Or is this going, who knows? We don't know. And as the cost of construction goes up, the requirements are going to be even greater. And the fact of the matter is that government, the decisions of government on how to deal with COVID has brought so many of these issues, has exacerbated so many of these issues, mental health, inflation, the cost of housing. It's like the government, we have been a huge part of creating these problems, and now we're trying to figure out that we're going to be the solution. I just want to know what our overall plan is instead of just going, okay, well, we have this $1 million from federal funds and we're going to use it for this. What are we going to say for the next applicant? And so what is the overall plan? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Fast's comments because I think she's right that I would welcome having more applications like this. It would be a wonderful problem to have. I'm not anticipating it will be a huge problem because, as Commissioner Fast pointed out, there aren't that many opportunities to get the kind of tax credits that this group did. And in fact, last week I sat in on a Kansas Housing Resources Corporation webinar about housing assistance programs in Kansas, and it was all rural. None of it applied to Johnson County. So I think we have to look to ourselves if we are going to help address the lack of housing options and the lack of affordable housing options for people in Johnson County, because my concern is at some point in the future, where are those folks going to live? And who's going to be teaching our kids? Who's going to be working in our restaurants? Because if they can't live here and they have to travel a long ways, that's going to very negatively impact our economy here in Johnson County. So I agree we have to be very careful and thoughtful at making these decisions, but I would be very surprised if we have a lot of these kinds of opportunities in the future.
Let me ask this clarification. I think I know the answer, but this property had been previously zoned, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was previously zoned. The rezoning was in place in 1999, and then there was a site plan, and that never materialized, and then they came up with a revised site plan that was approved in June of 2021.
Right, okay, thank you. Well, this will remain on action, so thank you very much. Are there any other items?
No, sir.
All right, that concludes our agenda review, and we are adjourned, and we'll come back at 1 p.m. to begin our budget consideration. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gosh.